Hello, neighbor. Glad you're back with us. I've got my mom with me. She's VALLIE Moorefield. We call her NANNIE. She's 94 years old now. She'll be 95 on April the 8th. So if you happen to be around, you know her on April the 8th, give her a big birthday wish. But we're talking about how God, and it may not look like it sometimes, but God is involved in our future. In reality, before we were born, God can bring things together. He's got a plan. God had a plan for me to be sitting where I'm sitting right here now, recording this video. Jeremiah 29:11 says, I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end, a hope in the future. God has a plan for us, and he will use whom he can when they'll let him, and he'll bless them for it. God doesn't just use people. When people let God use them, he pays them, and he pays them well. And so God will use people, and he'll bless them for it, to be able to put people in positions and bring them into a place where he wants them. And I look back on it, and I'm so grateful to God for the many people that had a part in my life. Years ago, I didn't realize this, but I'm realizing it more and more now. And I'm going to tell you something. I'll be 68 in April. And at age 68, I look back on it and realize God's had a hand in my life from the day I was born. And we'll see more about that. But as we've already heard, you born in 1922 to parents that were born in 1886 and 1888, respectively. You had 6 girls and a boy in your family that lived, and there were 2 boys and 2 girls that didn't live. So that would have been 11. And Nanny came up during the Depression time. We've heard the story of how really God kept them alive. It's the mercy of God that keeps any of us alive anyway, until we come to the place where we can know him and believe him for things. But the mercy of God was working in such a way that he kept them alive. And my mom and dad, they were married in 1941. And then they came to Winston in 1943. And then in 1947, when you came out to the place where you live now. Okay. And that's where we'd gotten up to. Now, did you know Henry Hutchins in 1947 when you moved into that house? How'd you meet Henry Hutchins? He was the pastor at Union Tabernacle. How'd you meet him?
Was down age neighbors, and we went up there to church for.
Okay.
But I don't remember when we met him, but we was living there when he built the church.
Right. Now, when did he build that rock house? Because he lived in that rock house across from your house.
Yeah, when he built it, but he was living in that rock house when we moved to Winston.
Okay, so he was there. You just didn't get to meet him. You maybe met him when he went to the church there one time. But when you moved into the house on Box Mountain Road, 1947, you really didn't know him. You might have met him, but you really didn't know him. Okay? Now, you described the house to us: 3 rooms, kitchen, living room, bedroom, subfloor, and if you swept the floor, you could sweep the dirt through the cracks. Outside toilet, a john, and you went to the neighbor to get water. A little sink and cinder blocks and planks for a front porch and steps. And what kind of heat did you have?
Little fireplace.
Little fireplace. Okay. And that's all the heat you had. And no such thing as air conditioning. Open the windows. Open the windows and fan yourself. All right. Now, you've moved into the house now then in 1947. You moved into the house on Box Mountain Road. When did Henry Hutchins come into your life? You bought the house from a man that you didn't know him, but you found out later he did not have the best reputation as being a good landlord, so to speak.
No, it's a preacher and stuff.
Okay, but tell us about meeting Preacher Hutchins, really getting to know him.
Well, I really don't know just when we met him, but
Well, it was after you moved into the house.
you know,
Okay.
and then him and Miss Hutchins building that Union Tabernacle.
Mm-hmm. They lived across the road, but they were building a church up there. Okay.
And then they sold that house, the rock house, and moved it down there on Mystic Lane, rented when Mr. Westwood.
Yeah.
And Then he built his house beside us.
Yeah, go ahead.
And they moved in this house at the side of us.
Right.
And he come over one day and said about to talk to him. And he said, I don't mean to be nosy, but I want to ask you some questions. He asked us how much we paid for the house and the 3 boys on his marriage. Help yourself. You don't know that man you bought that house, but I know him.
Yeah.
And said he's a crook.
Yeah.
And said if you miss one payment on that house, he'll take you with you.
Yeah.
Says I want to take you downtown. Standard savings and all.
Yep.
And then I won't take you down there. And all you'll have to do is sign some paper. I'll do the all. We went down there and we bought stuff their money from Standard Savings and Loan, paid out the loan. They finally got a job at Real. He'd be sick so much and I wasn't working. And payments would come on the house and we didn't have the money. Preaching for this, preaching for make that payment on that house and wouldn't let us pay it back.
Wow.
If they ain't a moment, did you tell me he was there?
Tell me about what when they go shopping, they go out to buy her something, or
It wasn't hers, both of them, just hers. He didn't have to take because she didn't drive.
right.
I still got that same issue. She bought me and she bought 3 sets. One for her daughter, one for me, and one for herself.
So basically, what you're saying is, when she'd go out shopping, a lot of times, if she got herself something, she'd buy you something too. Clothes and dishes and yeah.
Anything I need.
Yeah.
And we got them all the day where she go to work. And she come home from early and she come in and cook supper. And she come in, it was winter, and been changing that house. She crank out them windows and call me. And let Beechard come on and eat supper. And they didn't have a hot chair, and she kept sitting her lap. And
So I would go sit and I called her Aunt Irene. Her name was Irene Hutchins. Yeah. Well, now, see, that was a big house that was next door that they built. They lived upstairs. And was that her sister, her brother, Grace Spillman, that lived downstairs with his wife, Ruth, and their 2 daughters? And the 2 girls downstairs called Henry and Irene Uncle Henry and Aunt Irene. And I grew up hearing that. And so I called them Uncle Henry and Aunt Irene all my life. And that's a fascinating story. Now, who helped you fix the house up? You added a room, you added a bathroom, and you added a bedroom on the end, which became my room, and you bricked it up. Who did that for you? Well, Henry. Now, he was a builder by trade, wasn't he? And he built the church.
Built a church, he built that house in the again, he built the road house across the road, and really made a house out of my house.
Right. But he had a man working for him one time that was stealing from him. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
He was steal everything he get up and pick up, put on his pickup truck.
Yeah. Lumber, shingles, nails, tools, anything you get his hand. Yeah.
And what do you got to say?
Well, now, you've told me before that you talked to Uncle Henry about that, and Uncle Henry said, I know he's doing it, but he's got a family and got some kids. And he wouldn't fire him because he wouldn't hurt him. And then the guy left Uncle Henry's employee, didn't he? Then tell me what happened then.
Well, he come back, and one day when Uncle Henry wasn't even there, we had one day, it wasn't a pickup truck, it was a flatbed.
Yeah, big flatbed truck, yeah.
And he had, Lord, I don't know what you pay for that now. Lumber, nails, you name it, he had it. He had stolen from up here. He took it off his truck, the boy leaning out in the driveway. Beside me.
Yeah.
And he drove off the ledge. Well, I seen him do it. And I just laid there back and give it. And Uncle Henry come in and bring y'all.
Did he leave a letter or a note or number on that?
No, he called him.
He called him?
Or sent him a number.
Yeah. Well, Uncle Henry couldn't read. So he brought the note to you to read for him.
Uncle Henry could read up at the Bible.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
And well, don't know where me to read it. And he got saying, he said, I stole his stuff from me. And after I'm going to say, I ain't going to bring it back. But there was a big lump of it.
Yeah. Now, there was a story you told me about Uncle Henry and Aunt Reen one time. It was in cold weather, maybe wintertime, and they went to town and they saw two little boys. And they weren't well dressed. They were literally in rags and no coat, cold weather. Tell us about that.
It was going, what they was going to town for. But anyhow, they went down Liberty Street, and the sickest old boy, and they pulled over to the curb. Asked him what he did, the little boy told him. Well, they got out, took the little boy to the door, asked his mama if he had been stolen.
And it was two little boys, wasn't it? Yeah.
And she didn't know it. But he told her who he was. She could hear. And going back, they had clothes and shoes.
Yeah. Now later, those two little boys had grown up. They were now grown men. And they came to the church one Sunday, and Uncle Henry didn't know who they were. Tell us what happened.
Well, I don't remember. It's so long. They came in and they stayed with the service. And then after the service, they went to appreciation. They said, you don't like us. They said, we don't. If you remember the two little boys you picked up on Liberty Street?
Yeah.
And he said, I remember. They said, listen to us. They were, I don't know if they were married, but anyhow, they was in their 20s.
Yeah. Two fine-looking young men. Yeah. But that was the lifestyle of Henry Hutchins, wasn't it?
Lord, he'd give me shirt off his side.
Now, we mentioned something about him, the fact that he couldn't read anything except for the Bible. And you've told me this, but he's also shared this. I remember him sharing this when we visited him up in Yadkinville one time after he had left the Union Tabernacle and retired, he and Aunt Reen up there. That he, and you correct me if I think I remember everything correctly. He was a young man, he had gotten saved, and he cried himself to sleep with a Bible in his lap, begging.
Oh, they was married after he married Aunt Reen.
But he had a Bible and he couldn't read.
They lived down on in Britain.
Right.
In the boarding house on Liberty Street, but down there close to the Marina Bakers.
Okay. But he was a young man. He wasn't an old man. He was a young man. And he cried himself, but he cried himself to sleep, begging God to show him how to read his word. And while he was sleeping, the Lord gave him a dream. And in that dream, he saw a word.
Bethlehem.
No, wasn't. No, it was Philippi. Showed him the word. That's what Uncle Henry told me. It was Philippi. But he showed him the word, and Uncle Henry said they looked like, the letters were so big before them, they looked like a railroad boxcar sitting up on the end. And he said the Lord spoke to him and said, when you find that word in my book, I'll teach you how to read. Now, he knows it's Philippi when he tells the story, but when that first happened, he didn't know what that word was. The Lord just showed it to him. Now, can you imagine a man that can't read? Where do you find that word? I don't know about the rest of it, but I'd start at the first page because we wouldn't want to miss one. Huh. And can you imagine going through all the books of the Bible, Genesis, all the way through Malachi, all the Old Testament, and you never come across it? And you look, and you're looking at words, but you don't know what they're saying. You can't understand them. You don't know what it is. And word after word after word, you look and you search and you look and you search and you look and you search and you look and you search, and you finish up all of the Old Testament through Malachi. And then you start in the book of Matthew, and you look and you look and you look, and you keep looking and you keep looking. And then finally one day, you come to a place where, and I'll get there in a moment, where for the first time you see that word. You don't know how it sounds. You don't. All the Lord showed you was the word, and it's been blazoned in his mind. And here it is. When you finally get into Matthew chapter 16, now imagine this. He'd never read a word in his life, but he gets to Matthew 16, and he's looking down through this, and he's looking, and he's looking, and he's looking, and he's looking, and finally he comes to this verse of Scripture. When Jesus came into the coast of Caesarea Philippi, there's the word, Philippi. The first words that were opened to Henry Hutchins' eye